July 1, 1898. San Juan Heights, Cuba. 1 p.m. Sergeant George Berry of the 10th Cavalry Regiment holds the regimental flag as Spanish Mauser bullets crack overhead. His unit, one of 4 segregated black regiments in the U.S. Army, has been pinned down for 3 hours at the base of San Juan Hill and Kettle Hill. Spanish defenders hold fortified positions on the ridgeline 700 yards away. Blockhouses with interlocking fields of fire. Trenches protected by barbed wire. Artillery zeroed on the open ground American forces must cross. The attack should have started hours ago. Instead, American regiments are stalled in the jungle below the heights, taking casualties from Spanish artillery and rifle fire, waiting for orders that don't come. Lieutenant Colonel Theodore Roosevelt's 1st Volunteer Cavalry, the Rough Riders, are positioned to the 10th Cavalry's right. Roosevelt is furious about the delay, demanding his superior officers authorize an assault. White officers from regular Army regiments question whether volunteer cavalry can handle a frontal assault against fortified positions. No one questions whether the 10th Cavalry can handle it. They're professionals who've spent 30 years fighting Apaches, Comanches, and bandits across the American West. They're the Buffalo Soldiers, a name given by Native Americans, adopted with pride. But they're also black soldiers in 1898 America. White volunteer regiments call them brunettes and smoked Yankees. Spanish troops mock them from the heights, shouting insults in Spanish about Negro cowards who won't charge. At 1:10 p.m., the order finally comes: take the hill. The 10th Cavalry rises and advances. Sergeant Berry carries the flag through fire so intense that soldiers describe it as a wall of lead. Men fall every few yards. The regiment doesn't stop. They reach the Spanish trenches in 15 minutes, a 700-yard charge uphill under fire. They fight hand-to-hand in the trenches, forcing Spanish defenders back. They take the blockhouse on Kettle Hill's summit. Roosevelt and the Rough Riders attack simultaneously to their right. Both units reach the crest within minutes of each other. The Spanish position collapses. In his memoir, Roosevelt writes extensively about the Rough Riders' charge. He mentions the 10th Cavalry briefly, describing them as brave, but crediting his volunteers with taking the heights. The newspapers repeat Roosevelt's version. The Rough Riders become famous. The Buffalo Soldiers become a footnote. This is the real story of San Juan Hill. Who took it, who died doing it, and who got erased from history while one man built a presidency on their charge. If you want military history that restores credit where it belongs, subscribe right now. Drop a comment with where you're watching from. The Buffalo Soldiers' story was deliberately minimized for a century. The 9th and 10th Cavalry Regiments deployed to Cuba in June 1898 as part of the American Expeditionary Force sent to fight. Spain. These regiments are among the U.S. Army's most experienced units. Formed in 1866 during Reconstruction, they've served continuously on the western frontier for 32 years. They fought in the Indian Wars, patrolled the Mexican border, protected settlers, and mapped vast stretches of the American West. The soldiers are all black. Officers are predominantly white, though both regiments have several black officers, a rarity in the 1898 Army. The men are professionals, many with 10 to 15 years of service. They're expert horsemen, crack shots, and veterans of combat in conditions white volunteer regiments can't imagine. When war with Spain breaks out in April 1898, the Army mobilizes rapidly. The regular Army has only 28,000 soldiers. Congress authorizes expansion to 200,000, mostly through volunteer regiments like Roosevelt's Rough Riders. Men with no military experience, minimal training, led by political appointees. The 9th and 10th Cavalry represent proven capability. They're ready, immediately, requiring no training period. They embark for Cuba in June, arriving at Daiquiri on June 22nd. The landing is chaotic. No proper port facilities exist. Soldiers jump from transport ships into small boats, then wade ashore through surf. Equipment is lost. Horses drown when forced overboard in deep water. The Cuban heat, combined with tropical diseases, begins killing soldiers before they see combat. The 10th Cavalry lands without most of their horses. The cavalry becomes dismounted infantry. Soldiers trained to fight on horseback now forced to fight on foot. This is less than ideal, but the regiment adapts. White volunteer regiments struggle with basic field conditions. The heat is oppressive. 95+ degrees with crushing humidity. Tropical diseases spread rapidly. Malaria, yellow fever, dysentery. Men who never left the United States collapse from heat exhaustion. Volunteers who expected a quick, glorious war discover warfare's brutal reality. The Buffalo Soldiers handle these conditions better. Years on the western frontier taught them to function in extreme heat, limited water, and harsh terrain. They're acclimated to hardship in ways volunteers are not. This competence doesn't earn respect from white volunteer units. Instead, it creates resentment. White volunteers, struggling with conditions the Buffalo Soldiers handle routinely, interpret the black soldiers' competence as a challenge to white supremacy. Racial incidents occur immediately. White volunteers refuse to share water with black soldiers. They use racial slurs openly. Some physically attack black soldiers during off-duty hours. Officers from volunteer units complain to higher command about being camped near Negro regiments. The Buffalo Soldiers maintain discipline despite provocations. They're professionals in a segregated army. They've dealt with racism their entire careers. The mission matters more than the insults. The Spanish defenders add their own mockery. From positions in the hills, Spanish soldiers shout insults in broken English, calling American troops cowards. They reserve special contempt for black soldiers, yelling racist slurs and challenging them to attack if the Negroes have courage. The Spanish believe their own propaganda. Like Americans, Spanish military culture embraces racial hierarchy. They assume black soldiers are inferior and will break under fire. This assumption will cost them San Juan Heights. The American plan for taking Santiago de Cuba requires capturing San Juan Heights, a ridgeline overlooking the city. The heights consist of two main peaks, San Juan Hill to the south and Kettle Hill, named for a large sugar kettle at the summit, to the north. Spanish forces have fortified both positions with trenches, blockhouses, and barbed wire. Approximately 500 Spanish regulars defend the heights, supported by artillery. On July 1st, American forces, approximately 8,000 soldiers from regular army and volunteer regiments, advanced toward the heights. The plan is simple: approach through jungle trails, deploy into assault formations, and take the heights by frontal assault. The plan immediately encounters problems. The jungle trails are narrow, forcing regiments into single file. American forces bunch up, creating perfect targets for Spanish artillery. A balloon, brought forward for observation, draws concentrated fire, revealing American positions to Spanish gunners. Spanish artillery shells explode in the packed American columns. Men take casualties before reaching assault positions. The advance stalls as regiments try to deploy from marching column into attack formation under fire. The 10th Cavalry, advancing with other regiments toward Kettle Hill, comes under intense fire around 10 a.m. They deploy into skirmish lines and take cover in the tall grass at the base of the heights. Spanish defenders fire from trenches 700 yards uphill. The range is long for accurate rifle fire, but Spanish Mauser rifles are modern weapons, and Spanish soldiers are professionals. For 3 hours, American forces remain pinned at the base of the heights. Officers debate whether to assault or wait for artillery support. No clear orders come from division command. During this delay, soldiers take steady casualties from Spanish fire. Men lying in grass offer poor targets, but Spanish defenders fire systematically at any movement. Wounded soldiers cannot be evacuated. Stretcher bearers become targets themselves. The psychological pressure is intense. Lying under fire without returning effective fire or advancing breaks soldiers' morale faster than active combat. Volunteers, experiencing this for the first time, begin to crack. Some soldiers refuse to move forward. Some seek any excuse to move to the rear. The Buffalo Soldiers maintain discipline. They're under the same fire, taking the same casualties, facing the same psychological pressure. But they're veterans. They've been under fire before. They know panic gets you killed faster than enemy bullets. This is the story of soldiers who endured 3 hours of artillery fire, then charged 700 yards uphill into fortified positions, and succeeded. If you want military history about what professional soldiers accomplish under impossible conditions, subscribe right now. Drop a comment with where you're watching from. This charge changed American military history but was credited to the wrong regiment. Around 1 p.m., junior officers begin moving without waiting for formal orders. The situation is untenable. Staying pinned down guarantees continuing casualties without achieving anything. The only option is attack. Lieutenant Colonel Roosevelt makes the decision for the Rough Riders to assault Kettle Hill. He later claims he received orders to advance, but other officers dispute this. Roosevelt simply decides to move and orders his regiment forward. The 10th Cavalry, positioned to the Rough Riders' left, receives no such orders. But when they see Roosevelt's volunteers begin advancing, they rise and attack simultaneously. At approximately 1:10 p.m., multiple American regiments assault San Juan Heights simultaneously. The 10th Cavalry attacks Kettle Hill from the left. The Rough Riders attack from the right. The 3rd Cavalry and other regular Army units advance toward San Juan Hill itself. The assault is not a coordinated, planned operation. It's a spontaneous movement by multiple units, whose officers independently decide that attacking is better than staying pinned down. Sergeant George Berry of the 10th Cavalry grabs the regimental colors, the flag that identifies the unit and serves as rally point. Color bearers are priority targets for enemy fire. Carrying the flag is volunteering to be shot at. Berry carries the flag up Kettle Hill through sustained Spanish fire. Bullets tear through the flag fabric. Men around him fall wounded or dead. Berry continues forward, keeping the colors visible so soldiers know where to rally. The 10th Cavalry's advance is a textbook assault under fire. Soldiers move in rushes. Some advance while others provide covering fire, then switch roles. They use available terrain for cover: depressions in the ground, rocks, scrub vegetation. They maintain unit cohesion despite casualties. This is professional infantry tactics executed by experienced soldiers under the worst possible conditions. The Rough Riders' assault is less organized. Roosevelt's volunteers are brave, but they're inexperienced. They bunch up, making themselves targets. They waste ammunition firing wildly. Some stop to help wounded rather than continuing the assault. But they advance. Roosevelt, on horseback initially, then on foot, personally leads his regiment up the slope. Whatever tactical mistakes the volunteers make, they demonstrate courage. Both regiments reach Spanish defensive positions within minutes of each other. The fighting becomes hand-to-hand combat in the trenches, rifles used as clubs, knives, pistols at point-blank range. Spanish defenders fight hard, but they're outnumbered as more American soldiers crest the heights. The Spanish position collapses. Defenders abandon the trenches and retreat toward Santiago. American forces control Kettle Hill and San Juan Hill by 1:30 p.m. The cost is significant. The 10th Cavalry suffers approximately 20% casualties, killed and wounded. The Rough Riders lose similar percentages. Other regiments involved in the assault suffer comparably. Total American casualties for the San Juan Heights assault: approximately 200 killed, 1,200 wounded. Spanish casualties are lower, around 200 total, killed and wounded, because they held fortified positions and withdrew before being completely overrun. The heights are taken. Santiago is now vulnerable. The Spanish fleet, trapped in Santiago Harbor, will be destroyed days later. The war in Cuba is effectively over. Roosevelt immediately claims credit for the victory. In letters to friends and family, he describes leading the charge up San Juan Hill, conflating Kettle Hill with the larger San Juan Hill and presenting the Rough Riders as the primary assault force. The newspapers, receiving Roosevelt's version before other accounts arrive, print stories celebrating the Rough Riders' heroic charge. Roosevelt becomes a national hero. Within 2 years, he's vice president. By 1901, he's president. The 10th Cavalry's role is minimized in early accounts. They are mentioned as supporting the Rough Riders or assisting in the assault. The impression created is that volunteers led the charge while regular Army units helped. This narrative is false. Both regiments attacked simultaneously. Both reached the summit at approximately the same time. Both fought in the trenches. The assault succeeded because multiple regiments attacked together, overwhelming Spanish defenders through superior numbers. But Roosevelt's narrative dominates. He's politically connected, media-savvy, and white. The Buffalo Soldiers are segregated black soldiers with no political constituency and no access to the press. History, as written in 1898, reflects political power more than military fact. After taking San Juan Heights, American forces hold their positions despite Spanish counterattacks. The ridgeline becomes the front line. Soldiers dig trenches, improve defensive positions, and prepare for Spanish attempts to retake the heights. These counterattacks come throughout July, but Spanish forces cannot dislodge American troops from the high ground. The 10th Cavalry holds positions on Kettle Hill, continuing to take casualties from Spanish artillery and sniper fire. Tropical diseases kill more soldiers than combat. Yellow fever, malaria, and dysentery ravage American forces. Medical care is minimal. Soldiers die from infections that proper sanitation could prevent. Through these conditions, the Buffalo Soldiers maintain their positions. They patrol aggressively, preventing Spanish infiltration. They improve fortifications. They care for wounded despite limited medical supplies. White volunteer regiments struggle. Disease hits them harder. They lack the Buffalo Soldiers' experience with field sanitation and tropical conditions. Morale collapses in some units. Officers petition for their regiments to be evacuated. The contrast is stark. Professional soldiers continue functioning effectively, while volunteers break down under conditions professionals handle routinely. This performance doesn't change white Americans' racial attitudes. Instead, it's ignored or reinterpreted to maintain existing hierarchies. Roosevelt, in his writings about Cuba, praises the Buffalo Soldiers as brave and excellent fighters, but frames their competence as exceptional rather than expected. He describes being surprised by their performance, as if competence from black soldiers is unexpected. This framing, praising individuals while maintaining assumptions about group inferiority, allows white Americans to acknowledge the Buffalo Soldiers' achievement without challenging racial hierarchy. Newspapers follow Roosevelt's lead. Articles describe the 10th Cavalry's charge in terms that emphasize their courage, while subtly suggesting they needed white leadership to succeed. Officers from the regiment, who are white, receive disproportionate credit compared to the black NCOs and enlisted men who led squads and platoons during the assault. The official Army reports are more accurate. After-action reports from V Corps note the 10th Cavalry's professional performance and credit them with taking Kettle Hill. But these reports reach limited audiences: military professionals, historians, official records. Popular history, reaching millions through newspapers and magazines, follows Roosevelt's narrative. The Rough Riders charged San Juan Hill, actually Kettle Hill, but the name gets conflated. Roosevelt led them heroically. America won a glorious victory. The Buffalo Soldiers are footnoted. This erasure has lasting consequences. When the Army considers its lessons from Cuba, the Buffalo Soldiers' performance should prove black soldiers' capability in combat. Instead, the narrative focuses on volunteer regiments and Roosevelt's leadership. The institutional conclusion: volunteers with minimal training performed adequately when properly led. Black soldiers performed adequately when supervised by white officers. The Army's racial hierarchy is confirmed rather than challenged. The true story of San Juan Heights emerges slowly over decades. Military historians examining primary sources, unit reports, officer diaries, soldier testimonials, recognize that Roosevelt's narrative omits critical details. The Rough Riders didn't charge alone. The 10th Cavalry attacked simultaneously and suffered comparable casualties. Multiple regiments participated in an assault that succeeded through combined effort. But correcting popular history is difficult. Roosevelt's version is established in textbooks, popular accounts, and national memory. The Rough Riders' charge becomes an iconic moment in American history, Roosevelt rides this fame to the presidency. Challenging this narrative requires confronting a beloved national myth. Historians who note the 10th Cavalry's role are accused of diminishing Roosevelt's achievement or promoting political correctness. The Buffalo Soldiers themselves rarely challenge the narrative publicly. They're professionals in a segregated army. Challenging a president, especially one as popular as Roosevelt, could destroy their careers. They know what they did. They don't need white America's validation. Some officers from the 10th Cavalry write accounts emphasizing their regiment's role. These accounts circulate within military circles but don't reach popular audiences. The Rough Riders story remains dominant. In the 1990s, renewed historical interest in the Buffalo Soldiers brings their San Juan Heights role back into focus. Historians publish books specifically examining black soldiers' contributions to the Spanish-American War. These works use primary sources, combat reports, casualty lists, eyewitness accounts, to document what actually happened. The evidence is clear. The 10th Cavalry charged Kettle Hill simultaneously with the Rough Riders. Both units reached the summit at approximately the same time. Both fought in the trenches. Both suffered significant casualties. The assault succeeded because multiple units attacked together. This historical correction doesn't diminish the Rough Riders' courage. They fought bravely under difficult conditions. Roosevelt demonstrated personal courage leading his men under fire, but it does redistribute credit appropriately. The Buffalo Soldiers weren't supporting players. They were equal participants in an assault that both units executed successfully. In 2005, Congress authorizes a monument honoring the Buffalo Soldiers. The monument, placed at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, recognizes their service from 1866 through the Indian Wars, Spanish-American War, and Philippine insurrection. The inscription notes their role at San Juan Heights, stating they charged up Kettle Hill alongside other regiments. It's a small acknowledgement, a century late, but it's official recognition from the institution they served. Sergeant George Barry, who carried the 10th Cavalry's colors up Kettle Hill under fire, received the Medal of Honor in 1899, privately, with minimal publicity. His citation describes gallantry in action, but doesn't detail the specific circumstances. Barry's award was one of the few medals of honor given to black soldiers for Cuba service. Most Buffalo Soldiers who fought at San Juan Heights received no individual decorations. Their recognition was institutional, the regiment's official credit for taking Kettle Hill, rather than personal. They didn't seek glory. They did their job, a job that required charging 700 yards uphill into fortified positions under sustained fire, then fighting hand-to-hand in trenches, all while enduring racism from their own army and mockery from their enemy. The Spanish troops who called them smoked Yankees and taunted them as cowards learned the truth the hard way. The Buffalo Soldiers took the hill. The Spanish lost it. That's the fact that matters. Roosevelt got the presidency. The Buffalo Soldiers got footnotes. But history, when examined honestly, reveals who did the fighting and who deserved the credit. The 10th Cavalry Regiment's motto, adopted after their frontier service, is ready and forward. At San Juan Heights, they proved it. They were ready when called. They went forward under fire. They took the objective. That's what professional soldiers do. They did it without recognition, without credit, and without complaint. The story deserves to be told accurately, with the Buffalo Soldiers receiving the credit they earned 125 years ago.